Green branding is spreading to the bond market, with Contact Energy and Argosy joining Auckland Council in issuing green bonds on the NZX debt market. The proceeds of Contact's $100 million offer, already successfully closed, will go towards financing renewable generation and other eligible assets. Argosy's offer on a 7-year green $100 million bond, including a priority offer of up to $10 million for its retail shareholders, was attracting strong investor interest as its roadshow ended last week. February's two green bond offers on the NZX follow last year's Auckland Council successful $200 million bond, which funded electric trains and associated infrastructure. ANZ's Head of Capital Markets, Dean Spicer, is predicting more borrowers who are looking at the market and seeing benefits in issuing a bond will step forward.
Renewable energy is a big feature of our market and a big plus, and certainly a number of companies in that sector would have assets that qualify. The property sector, again, there's others in that sector who potentially could come and issue green bonds as well. Central and local government is definitely a candidate for it. And certainly, there's some quite sizable assets there that will meet the criteria.
Foreign investors find the New Zealand commercial property market too good to ignore, even with tightening of the Overseas Investment Act in place and the threat of a capital gains tax being introduced. Commercial real estate services and investment firm CBRE predicts a wave of institutional investors being attracted to New Zealand commercial property sector, given the high yields it's returning. A yield of around 4% or 5% is considered attractive compared to below 3% for Hong Kong commercial property. CBRE research head Dr. Henry Chin says the risk of a CGT doesn't faze foreign investors, who will ignore bureaucratic hurdles to chase high yields.
The attractiveness for New Zealand commercial real estate market, particularly office sectors, is because of the yield spread. If you look at the office sectors across all the major Asia-Pacific cities, New Zealand Auckland office market, the spread is in the top 3.
New Zealand Post is again increasing its bulk mail pricing for business customers from July, the second large increase in 2 years. Despite New Zealand Post claiming it was working hard to keep the cost of sending bulk mail as low as possible, the average increase will be 12 to 17% for most customers. It will also introduce a zonal pricing structure to its volume post and go flexible services. Meanwhile, the price of sending a standard letter within New Zealand will also increase 10 cents to $1.30, an increase that New Zealand Post says better reflects the true cost of sending a letter. The National Party has welcomed Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern ruling out any changes to the party vote threshold before next year's election. The Green Party had wanted the threshold lowered from 5% to 4% before the election, as well as imposing tighter restrictions on political donations. The National Party has opposed the changes and the push to get them through before the election by using a simple majority in Parliament. National's electoral reform spokesperson Nick Smith says New Zealand is unusual in not having a written constitution, which in other countries prevents changes to electoral law by winning a parliamentary majority.
New Zealand actually has a pretty sordid history of governments of the day trying to rig the rules to advantage themselves. My hope is a consequence of the Greens getting a bit of a bruising over this latest episode of trying to reduce that threshold from 5% to 4%, that we might have a more mature and a more considered cross-party discussion.
The construction industry has rejected the proposed vocational education reform that would see the country's 16 ailing polytechnics merged into one entity. 150 building and construction sector representatives met at a building industry training organisation summit to discuss the government's reform plans, with 2/3 rejecting the proposals. BCITO Chief Executive Warwick Quinn says attendees made it clear they value the sector having control of standard setting and delivery of training. Consultation for the proposed reform closes on March 27th. And looking ahead to tomorrow, tech columnist Rob O'Neill discusses the business case, or not, for 5G. So for more on that and other stories, head to nbr.co.nz.